All at once the doctor flung himself free, seized the heavy headboard of William's grave and felled Potter to the earth with it. And in the same instant the half-breed saw his chance and drew the knife to the hilt in the young man's breast. He reeled and fell partly upon Potter, flooding him with his blood, and in the same moment the clods blotted out the dreadful spectacle and the two frightened boys went speeding away in the dark. Presently, when the moon emerged again, Injun Joe was standing over the two forms, contemplating them. The doctor murmured inarticulately, gave a long gasp or two, and was still. The half-breed muttered, "That score is settled, damn you." Then he rubbed the body, after which he put the fatal knife in Potter's open right hand, and sat down on the dismantled coffin. 3, 4, 5 minutes passed, and then Potter began to stir and moan. His hand closed upon the knife. He raised it, glanced at it, and let it fall, with a shudder. Then he sat up, pushing the body from him, and gazed at it, and then around him confusedly. His eyes met Joe's. "Lord, how is this?" "Joe," he said. "It's a dirty business," said Joe, without moving. "What did you do it for?" I never done it. Look here, that kind of talk won't wash." Potter trembled and grew white. "I thought I got sober. I'd no business to drink tonight, but it's in my head yet. Worse than when we started here. I'm all in a muddle. Can't recollect anything of it. Hardly. Tell me, Joe. Honest now, old feller. Did I do it? Joe, I never meant to. 'Pon my soul and honor, I never meant to, Joe. Tell me how it was, Joe. Oh, it's awful. And him so young and promising. Why, you two was scuffling, and he fetched you one with the headboard and you fell flat, and then up you come, all reeling and staggering like, and snatched the knife and jammed it into him, just as he fetched you another awful clip, and here you have laid, as dead as a wedge till now. Oh, I didn't know what I was doing. I wish I may die this minute if I did. It was all on account of the whiskey and the excitement, I reckon. I never used a weapon in my life before, Joe. I have fought, but never with weapons. They'll all say that, Joe. Don't tell. Say you won't tell, Joe. That's a good feller. I always liked you, Joe, and stood up for you, too. Don't you remember? You won't tell, will you, Joe? And the poor creature dropped on his knees before the stolid murderer, and clasped his appealing hands. No, you have always been fair and square with me, Muff Potter, and I won't go back on you. There, now, that's as fair as a man can say. Oh, Joe, you're an angel. I will bless you for this the longest day I live. And Potter began to cry. Come, now, that's enough of that. This ain't any time for blubbering. You be off yonder way and I'll go this. Move, now, and don't leave any tracks behind you. Potter started on a trot that quickly increased to a run. The half-breed stood looking after him. He muttered, "If he's as much stunned with the lick and fuddled with the rum as he had the look of being, he won't think of the knife till he's gone so far he'll be afraid to come back after it's to such a place by himself." Chicken heart. 2 or 3 minutes later, the murdered man, the blanketed corpse, the lidless coffin, and the open grave were under no inspection but the moon's. The stillness was complete again, too. Chapter 10. The two boys flew on and on toward the village, speechless with horror. They glanced backward over their shoulders from time to time, apprehensively, as if they feared they might be followed. Every stump that started up in their path seemed a man and enemy, and made them catch their breath. And as they sped by some outlying cottages that lay near the village, The barking of the aroused watchdogs seemed to give wings to their feet. "If we can only get to the old tannery before we break down," whispered Tom, in short catches between breaths. "I can't stand it much longer." Huckleberry's hard pantings were his only reply, and the boys fixed their eyes on the goal of their hopes and bent to their work to win it. They gained steadily on it, and at last, breast to breast, they burst through the open door and fell grateful and exhausted in the sheltering shadows beyond. By and by their pulses slowed down, and Tom whispered, "Huckleberry, what do you reckon will come of this? If Dr. Robinson dies, I reckon hanging'll come of it. Do you know, though?" "Why, I know it, Tom." Tom thought a while, then he said, "Who will tell? We? What are you talking about? Suppose something happened and Injun Joe didn't hang? Why, he'd kill us some time or other, just as dead sure as we are laying here." "That is just what I was thinking to myself, Huck. If anybody tells, let Muff Potter do it, if he is fool enough. He is generally drunk enough." Tom said nothing, went on thinking. Presently he whispered, "Huck, Muff Potter don't know it. How can he tell? What's the reason he don't know it? Because he just got the whack when Injun Joe done it. Do you reckon he could see anything? Do you reckon he knowed anything? By hockey, that is so, Tom. And besides, looky here, maybe that whack dumb for him. No, tain't likely, Tom. He had liquor in him. I could see that. And besides, he always has. Well, when Pep's full, you might take and belt him over the head with a church and you couldn't faze him. He says so, his own self. So it is the same with Muff Potter, of course. But if a man was dead sober, I reckon maybe that whack might fetch him. I don't know." After another reflective silence, Tom said, "Hucky, you sure you can keep Mom?" "Tom, we gotta keep Mom. You know that. That Injun devil wouldn't make any more of drowning us than a couple of cats if he was to squeak about this and they didn't hang him. Now, looky here, Tom. Let's take and swear to one another. That's what we gotta do. Swear to keep Mom." "I am agreed. It is the best thing. Would you just hold hands and swear that we—" "Oh no, that wouldn't do for this. That's good enough for little rubbishy common things, specially with gals, 'cause they go back on you anyway, and blab if they get in a huff, but there oughter be writing about a big thing like this, and blood." Tom's whole being applauded this idea. It was deep and dark and awful. The hour, the circumstances, the surroundings were in keeping with it. He picked up a clean pine shingle that lay in the moonlight, took a little fragment of red keel out of his pocket, got the moon on his work, and painfully scrawled these lines, emphasizing each slow down stroke by clamping his tongue between his teeth and letting up the pressure on the upstrokes. "Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer swears they will keep Mom about this and they wish they may drop down dead in their tracks if they ever tell and rot." Huckleberry was filled with admiration of Tom's facility in writing and the sublimity of his language. He at once took a pin from his lapel and was going to prick his flesh, but Tom said, "Hold on, don't do that. A pin's brass. It might have verdigris on it." "What is verdigris?" "It's poison. That is what it is. You just swallow some of it at once, you will see." So Tom unwound the thread from one of his needles, and each boy pricked the ball of his thumb and squeezed out a drop of blood. In time, after many squeezes, Tom managed to sign his initials, using the ball of his little finger for a pen. Then he showed Huckleberry how to make an H and an F, and the oath was complete. They buried the shingle close to the wall, with some dismal ceremonies and incantations, and the fetters that bound their tongues were considered to be locked and the key thrown away. A figure crept stealthily through a break in the other end of the ruined building now, but they did not notice it. Tom, whispered Huckleberry, does this keep us from ever telling? Always? Of course it does. It don't make any difference what happens. We gotta keep mum. We drop down dead, don't you know that? Yes, I reckon that is so. They continued to whisper for some little time. Presently, a dog set up a long, lugubrious howl just outside, within 10 feet of them. The boys clasped each other suddenly, in an agony of fright. Which of us does he mean? Gasped Huckleberry. I don't know. Peep through the crack. Quick! No, you, Tom. I can't do it, Huck. Please, Tom, dare this again. Oh, Lordy, I am thankful, whispered Tom. I know his voice. It's Bull Harbison. If Mr. Harbison owned a slave named Bull, Tom would have spoken of him as Harbison's Bull, but a son or a dog of that name was Bull Harbison. Oh, that is good. I tell you, Tom, I was most scared to death. I'd bet anything it was a stray dog. The dog howled again. The boys' hearts sank once more. Oh my, that ain't no Bull Harbison, whispered Huckleberry. Do, Tom. Tom, quaking with fear, yielded and put his eye to the crack. His whisper was hardly audible when he said, Oh, Huck, it's a stray dog. Quick, Tom, quick. Who does he mean? Huck, he must mean us both. We're right together. Oh, Tom, I reckon we're goners. I reckon there ain't no mistake about where I'll go to. I've been so wicked. Dad, fetch it. This comes of playing hooky and doing everything a feller's told not to do. I might have been good like Sid if I'd tried, but no, I wouldn't, of course. But if ever I get off this time, I lay I'll just waller in Sunday schools. And Tom began to snuffle a little. You bad. And Huckleberry began to snuffle too. Confound it, Tom Sawyer, you're just old pie, longside of what I am. Oh, Lordy, 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 I wished I only had half your chance. Tom choked off and whispered. Look, Hucky, look, he's got his back to us. Hucky looked with joy in his heart. Well, he has, by jingoes. Did he before? Yes, he did, but I, like a fool, never thought. Oh, this is bully, you know. Now who can he mean? The howling stopped. Tom pricked up his ears. Shh, what is that? He whispered. Sounds like hogs grunting. No, it's somebody snoring, Tom. That is it. Whereabouts is it, Huck? I believe it's down at the other end. Sounds so. Anyway, Pep used to sleep there sometimes, long with the hogs. But laws bless you, he just leaves things when he snores. Besides, I reckon he ain't ever coming back to this town anymore. The spirit of adventure rose in the boys' souls once more. Hucky, do you dast to go if I lead? I don't like to much, Tom. Suppose it's Injun Joe. Tom quailed. But presently the temptation rose up strong again and the boys agreed to try, with the understanding that they would take to their heels if the snoring stopped. So they went tiptoeing stealthily down, the one behind the other. When they had got to within 5 steps of the snorer, Tom stepped on a stick, and it broke with a sharp snap. The man moaned, writhed a little, and his face came into the moonlight. It was Muff Potter. The boys' hearts had stood still, and their hopes too, when the man moved, but their fears passed away now. They tiptoed out through the broken weather boarding, and stopped at a little distance to exchange a parting word. That long, lugubrious howl rose on the night air again. They turned and saw the strange dog standing within a few feet of where Potter was lying, and facing Potter, with his nose pointing heavenward. "Oh, Jiminy, it's him!" exclaimed both boys, in a breath. "Say, Tom, they say a stray dog come howling around Johnny Miller's house, 'bout midnight, as much as 2 weeks ago, and a whippoorwill come in and lit on the banisters and sung, the very same evening, and there ain't anybody that there yet.' Well, I know that, and suppose there ain't. Didn't Gracie Miller fall in the kitchen fire and burn herself terrible the very next Saturday? Yes, but she ain't dead, and what is more, she's getting better, too. All right, you wait and see. She's a goner, just as dead sure as Muff Potter's a goner. That's what the niggers say, and they know all about this kind of things, Huck." Then they separated, cogitating. When Tom crept in at his bedroom window, the night was almost spent. He undressed with excessive caution, and fell asleep congratulating himself that nobody knew of his escapade. He was not aware that the gently snoring Sid was awake, and had been so for an hour. When Tom awoke, Sid was dressed and gone. There was a late look in the light, a late sense in the atmosphere. He was startled. Why had he not been called? Persecuted till he was up, as usual, the thought filled him with bodings. Within 5 minutes he was dressed and downstairs, feeling sore and drowsy. The family were still at table, but they had finished breakfast. There was no voiced rebuke, but there were averted eyes. There was a silence and an air of solemnity that struck a chill to the culprit's heart. He sat down and tried to seem gay, but it was uphill work. It roused no smile, no response, and he lapsed into silence and let his heart sink down to the depths. After breakfast, his aunt took him aside, and Tom almost brightened in the hope that he was going to be flogged, but it was not so. His aunt wept over him and asked him how he could go and break her old heart so, and finally told him to go on, and ruin himself and bring her gray hairs with sorrow to the grave, for it was no use for her to try any more. This was worse than 1,000 whippings, and Tom's heart was sorer now than his body. He cried, he pleaded for forgiveness, promised to reform over and over again, and then received his dismissal, feeling that he had won but an imperfect forgiveness and established but a feeble confidence. He left the presence too miserable to even feel revengeful towards Sid, and so the latter's prompt retreat through the back gate was unnecessary. He mopped to school gloomy and sad, and took his flogging, along with Joe Harper, for playing hooky the day before, with the air of one whose heart was busy with heavier woes and wholly dead to trifles. Then he betook himself to his seat, rested his elbows on his desk and his jaws in his hands, and stared at the wall with the stony stare of suffering that he has reached the limit and can no further go. His elbow was pressing against some hard substance. After a long time, he slowly and sadly changed his position, and took up this object with a C. It was in a paper. He unrolled it. A long, lingering, colossal C followed, and his heart broke. It was his brass andiron knob. This final feather broke the camel's back. Chapter 11. Close upon the hour of noon, the whole village was suddenly electrified with the ghastly news. No need of the as yet undreamed of telegraph. The tale flew from man to man, from group to group, from house to house, with little less than telegraphic speed. Of course the schoolmaster gave holiday for that afternoon. The town would have thought strange of him if he had not. A gory knife had been found close to the murdered man, and it had been recognized by somebody as belonging to Muff Potter. So the story ran, and it was said that a belated citizen had come upon Potter washing himself in the branch about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and that Potter had once sneaked off. Suspicious circumstances, especially the washing, which was not a habit with Potter. It was also said that the town had been ransacked for this murderer. The public are not slow in the matter of sifting evidence and arriving at a verdict, but that he could not be found. Horsemen had departed down all the roads in every direction, and the sheriff was confident that he would be captured before night. All the town was drifting toward the graveyard. Tom's heartbreak vanished and he joined the procession, not because he would not 1,000 times rather go anywhere else, but because an awful, unaccountable fascination drew him on. Arrived at the dreadful place, he wormed his small body through the crowd and saw the dismal spectacle. It seemed to him an age since he was there before. Somebody pinched his arm. He turned, and his eyes met Huckleberry's. Then both looked elsewhere at once, and wondered if anybody had noticed anything in their mutual glance. But everybody was talking, and intent upon the grisly spectacle before them. Poor fellow, poor young fellow, this ought to be a lesson to grave robbers. Muff Potter'll hang for this if they catch him. This was the drift of remark, and the minister said it was a judgment. His hand is here. Now Tom shivered from head to heel, for his eye fell upon the stolid face of Injun Joe. At this moment the crowd began to sway and struggle, and voices shouted, "It's him! It's him! He's coming himself!" "Who? Who?" from 20 voices. "Muff Potter!" "Hello!" "He stopped!" "Look out! He's turning! Don't let him get away!" People in the branches of the trees over Tom's head said he wasn't trying to get away. He only looked doubtful and perplexed. "Infernal impudence," said a bystander. "Wanted to come and take a quiet look at his work, I reckon. Didn't expect any company." The crowd fell apart now, and the sheriff came through, ostentatiously leading Potter by the arm. The poor fellow's face was haggard, and his eyes showed the fear that was upon him.